the Pioneer viewers, we continue to bring you the most noteworthy events unfolding in the shadow of war. One of Ukraine's most critical pillars of support is the partisans operating in the occupied territories. Moving silently, often remaining invisible, these groups deal heavy blows to the Russian army with their timely moves. The latest incident was one of the most striking examples of this reality. The operation carried out in the Zaporizhia region had the potential to affect the course of the war. Thanks to intelligence support provided by the partisans, Ukrainian forces targeted a critical communication center of the Russian army. This center played a vital role in many areas, from coordinating troops in the field to managing logistics networks. As a result of the operation, this communications center was completely destroyed, and the order the Russian army was trying to establish in the region was disrupted once again. Ukraine's focus on such targets, especially in recent times, is noteworthy. This is because the security of communication lines in modern warfare is as strategically important as tanks or artillery units. An army that loses its coordination becomes virtually ineffective on the battlefield despite all the firepower at its disposal. Therefore, this development means not only the destruction of a center, but also the disruption of the Russian army's plans. Now we will examine the details of this critical development together and analyze its effects on the battlefield step by step. We need your support to produce detailed content on the Russia-Ukraine war. You can provide this support by clicking the like button and leaving a comment. Also, don't forget to mention what kind of content you would like to see on our channel. This attack, carried out by the Ukrainian army with partisan support, is not limited to the destruction of a vehicle or a center. In fact, this incident once again highlights how critical intelligence warfare and resistance movements are in the unseen face of war. In the Zaporizhia region, a mobile communication center used by the Russian army to ensure coordination between units was targeted and destroyed. This center was a system that maintained the chain of command for military units in the field and ensured the smooth execution of operations. However, agents of the resistance movement called Artesh passed critical information to the Ukrainian army. Thanks to intelligence, the Russians' P-142 HMP communication vehicle was hit with precision fire. Artesh's sources in the field tracked Russian troops for weeks, observing their movements and analyzing their communications traffic. According to the organization's statement, our sources within the occupying forces provided the exact coordinates of the P-142 HMP vehicle, which was used as a mobile command center to control enemy forces. This information enabled the Ukrainian Defense Forces to launch a precision strike on the target. The attack yielded rapid results and severely disrupted the Russian army's coordination capabilities on this front. The technical aspects of the attack is also noteworthy. After receiving the coordinates from partisans, the Ukrainian army conducted reconnaissance in the area using high-precision unmanned aerial vehicles, artillery fire and kamikaze drones. Then came into play, according to eyewitness accounts, the vehicle was completely destroyed in a few minutes of intense attack. The explosion was so powerful that even nearby Russian soldiers suffered heavy casualties. So, what was the strategic importance of this attack? First, the destruction of a communication center on the front line creates a serious gap in the chain of command. Soldiers cannot receive orders from their superiors. Coordination between different units cannot be achieved, and tactical plans on the ground are thrown into disarray. This means chaos on the battlefield. Indeed, it was reported that immediately after the attack, Russian troops serving on the Zaporizhia line remained immobile for several hours and switched to defense in a disorganized manner. The support the Ukrainian army receives from partisans in such operations has become increasingly visible in recent times. Artesh not only gathers intelligence in the occupied territories, but also carries out sabotage actions, attacks on logistics lines, and moral damaging psychological operations. This attack also proved how critical a source of intelligence the resistance movement is for the Ukrainian army. On the Russian side, there was serious demoralization. Messages shared on Russia's Telegram channels stated that soldiers were unable to receive orders from their superiors. Radios were silent, and there was a great chaos in the chain of communication. Some military commentators said, "The command center in Zaporizhia has been destroyed. Our troops are blind and deaf." This operation also exposed Russia's weaknesses on the ground. In modern warfare, communication and coordination are as important as weapons and ammunition. For an army to be successful on the ground, the chain of command must function flawlessly. However, Ukraine's attack proved that even with modern systems, the Russian army can be targeted with partisan support. Military experts in the region point out that this attack is not only tactical but also of strategic importance. This is because the Zaporizhia line is one of the most critical fronts in the war. Any coordination problem here could affect not only this front, but the entire course of the war. The weakening of Russia's defense lines in the region could present Ukraine with new opportunities for attack. Following the operation, a statement from the Ukrainian General Staff said, "Our cooperation with the resistance movement will continue thanks to our heroes who support us in the occupied territories. We are dealing heavier blows to the enemy every day." This statement reveals that Ukraine sees the partisan movement not only as temporary support, but as part of its long-term strategy for the war. Russia, however, is trying to downplay the impact of the incident. Media outlets close to the Kremlin claim that the attack was small-scale and caused only a brief disruption in communication. However, images from the field contradict these statements. The wrecked vehicles, the burning ammunition debris around it, and the Russian soldiers moving frantically in the area show how severe the consequences of the attack actually are. Meanwhile, the international community is also closely monitoring this development. Western military analysts emphasize that Ukraine's strong cooperation with partisans will make it difficult for Russia to maintain control over the occupied territories. This is because it is not only the clashes on the front lines that determine the outcome of the war, but also intelligence and resistance activities behind the front lines. Ultimately, this operation in Zaporizhia is much more than the destruction of a communication center. This incident shows how Ukraine, hand in hand with partisans, is dismantling Russia's war machine step by step. The weakening of the Russian army's coordination capabilities could change all the balances on the ground. An increase in such attacks in the coming days could make Russia's work on the front lines even more difficult. So, what do you think? What could the destruction of the communications center change on the Zaporizhia front in the coming days? Share your thoughts below. We read and value your opinions.